It's a little bit overdone. Thank you. I don't want to be corny, but I thought I'd start off by saying, although I've never been to Kiev, ich bin ein Kievian. My father was born in Kiev, so that actually a little town about 50 kilometers outside, which I intend to visit while I'm here. He never got to come here, but 100 years later, I'm here, so it's interesting. I once said to him, it was amazing, leaving this country as an orphan in the early 1900s, and during the Clinton administration, I had the good fortune to be at dinner several times at the White House, so it shows you what can happen in a country over a period of 100 years. My theme that I'm talking about today is what I was given was emerging themes and trends in technology and digital media. And I really come to this in a very humble fashion, and I mean that because you don't have to be around this environment too long, or around Europe in general, and certainly at this conference, to know that everything that's going on in the world today, whether it's in the United States or England or Germany or Russia or Far East, everybody knows about it at the same time. I was watching on television and I heard about New York before I left, and I'm sure all of you have read it by now. It'd be interesting to see how many of you have seen it. How many of you have heard of cronuts? Not that many. Anyhow, this is something that started out in a small shop in New York about 3 weeks ago, and on television this morning on CNN, it is in every city in the world virtually now, and now they're fighting for who owns the name. But a little idea that starts in a little shop spreads virally all over the world so fast. So I don't think there's very much that I can tell you that you don't know about it. Well, I can, and I come to this sincerely, not as a chauvinistic American telling you what we know how to do better, what we've done that you haven't done, because I think we're in a world, as Tom Friedman said, the world is flat today. Everything that's going on is instantaneously, virally known every other place. So there's not much I can tell you don't know. All I can tell you is really what I see as some of the trends that seem to be capturing a lot of attention. You know that, but you know them, but I'm just going to give you a little bit more emphasis. I was told not to tell you about our firms, not to promote it, so I won't say very much about our firm, except we're, as you'll see, focused in a very, I'm going to skip these. I think our investment thesis is this, really. And this is an overall view. 90% of the exits that have been reported for venture capital firms in the last, we've got here back to 1995, so that's even more than I had when I first did this chart, has really been through M&A. And I think that there's a perspective lost in the world today about IPOs, and we're seeing for the first time probably since the early 2000s a new wave of IPOs in the United States and abroad. And it's very encouraging, but don't lose sight of the reality that 90% of the transactions of companies by venture capitalists are sold in M&A transactions. We have 75 companies in our portfolio. As you know, my firm's called Graycroft, but before that, and where I really have built up my reputation over the years, is I am the founder of APAX, which I'm sure a lot of you know, which stands for Alan Patricof Associates International, which we started in 1970 and built an organization that's all over the world. Graycroft was started 6 or 7 years ago, and we have not had one company go public out of 75, and we've sold about 20. So that gives you further proof. And now the second slide is the average transaction. You read about, we were an investor in Braintree that got sold a few weeks ago at $800 million, and we were in a company called Pulse that got sold to LinkedIn, and another one that was sold to Salesforce called Buddy Media. They're very unusual. The average transaction size we've had is truthfully under $70 million. So don't get carried away or feel frustrated when you read about the big ones, the big fish that take place. Most of the transactions This doesn't work?
Yeah.
I got to do two. I'm getting an echo. That's why I didn't use it. The average transactions are much lower than what you read about in the paper that get the high visibility. So if you're venture capitalists, or if you're entrepreneurs starting up, don't get unrealistic expectations. Now, I am going to tell you our concept because it does tell you how we've operated and what our strategy is. We don't lead every deal. We are not interested in leading. We don't take board seats. We don't start out with an expectation of $1 billion exit. We start out with what I just showed you, that our companies are probably going to end up in an M&A transaction. Now, it doesn't mean we don't want to have a large outcome, and we have had some very large outcomes, but we don't set out in the beginning to think that. We don't look to have the largest fund. In fact, we are, as a policy, only interested in having small funds because we think that's where to go and that's where people are going today. We do syndicate every transaction. We have no minimum percentage ownership. We have no minimum dollar investment. And as I say, we don't have any expectation of going public. Now, I don't want to give you the wrong idea. We are like everybody else. We love to have billion-dollar transaction exits, and we love to have IPOs, but we want to also invest as we go into early-stage companies with a realistic exit expectation. So what are the things that are happening today? The shift is definitely going towards mobile. Avoid mobile at your peril. Last year, nearly 12% of the time spent with media by an adult was consumed via a mobile device. And let me tell you, that percentage is going to go higher and higher and higher. Digital ad spending is going to migrate rapidly onto mobile. From 8 billion, it's forecasted in 2012 to 63 billion in the next 4 years. And that is held back only by one thing, which you know, which is the form size of the screen, and that's rapidly changing. For those of you who have a Samsung Note or S4 or even the new Apple 5C, you'll see the screens are getting bigger. Mobile and tablet sales have grown rapidly, and frankly, one is blended into the other. They're almost indistinguishable. When people talk about mobile, they really are including tablet for the most part. And as you can see, the tablet growth is dramatic. I remember when I backed my first cellular company in 1981, which is a company called Cellular Communications, Inc. We went in the first lottery in the United States. That's how the first licenses were handed out. It was through a lottery. You didn't even pay for spectrum. And we extrapolated our numbers, projecting forward, and assumed that in 10 years there would be a 2% penetration in the United States. I don't have to tell you the penetration today is virtually 100% in the United States, as it is in the rest of the world. And that's how fast the world has changed in terms of mobile use, and the tablet is only added to that. Globally, more than 1/3 of digital ad spend will be on mobile. I showed you that figure before. Take a look at these numbers from right now, 14% going up to 36%. And from a dollar standpoint, as I said earlier, 16 billion this year going up to 63 billion. So that's where the action is. It's accelerating at a growth of 53% a year. And you can see that the time spent on mobile is getting bigger and bigger. Mobile is our lifeline. We just backed a company in the United States, which, and I think there are several started in Europe as well, which senses through your mobile phone, because most of our phones are on, except, of course, in conferences like this where they're all turned off. I don't know how many of you have a policy. We have a policy that no mobile devices in meetings, because otherwise we sit and everybody's head is looking below the table. So we ban mobile devices during any meetings. But the trend is certainly growing, the amount of time that people are spending. I said we started saying we have a company called Nomi, which is similar to a few other companies, which monitors your traffic when you go into stores based on the fact that such a large percentage of the traffic in a store has a mobile device that's on at the time they're in the store. Second part of that mobile activity is mobile payments. As I said, we were involved with Braintree that just got sold to eBay last week. Mobile payments are sweeping the world. I don't have to tell you, in fact, one of the leading countries in the world is Kenya with M-Pesa, which is really almost the icon of what people look at as to how significant mobile payments can be. It's a strong area of growth, and I would certainly urge anyone who's interested in this area to focus on payments. We're going to make payments through our mobile device one way or the other. People like the convenience. They always have it with them. As I said, retailers are all working on solutions to get around the credit card, the plastic credit card. They're expected to grow dramatically from 246 million users. We're saying it's going to go to 450 million users. But the compound growth rate is phenomenal. And there are all forms of mobile payments, as you can see. Interestingly, in the United States, NFC is not taken off. Consumers and companies in general just don't want to use the technology. We were early on in looking at NFC. The only place it seems to be growing is in South Korea, followed by Russia, interestingly. But mobile banking is taken off virtually around the world. Again, South Korea seems to lead in every category, but the U.S., after NFC, really has taken off in whether it's barcodes or mobile shopping and mobile banking. This is a look at some of the companies in the area. I'm sure you've all heard of most of these. Interestingly, we're an investor in Fortumo, which comes from Estonia. There are plenty of other companies in this part of the world that are focusing on the same areas. Just to take a look at that for a second, even Walmart stores, as you know, Starbucks is, everyone in my office pays for their Starbucks in the morning with some kind of mobile payment. Key takeaways: mobile banking and commerce is increasingly common. The NFC growth is expected to be limited, although I can't speak for Europe. I can tell you about that in the United States. And there is plenty of room for innovation in developing services around the payments infrastructure. Analysis of transactions is increasingly has a great interest to retailers. Second trend that you can't avoid is video. Video is taken off like crazy. We've made a lot of investments in the video area. 60% of network traffic in the U.S. is now devoted to online video streaming. 50% of all mobile traffic is video. And people are spending a lot of time watching video. YouTube attracts 1 billion unique visitors who watch over 6 billion hours of videos each month. We have an investment in a company called Maker Studio. It's incredible. I can't believe it, but they get 4 billion video views a month. I'm sorry, it's in there. I didn't even see it written in. And there are other companies around like Machinima and Fullscreen that are taking off. And there are, most importantly, people are trying to develop other outlets besides YouTube for their video. YouTube at the moment has such a large share of the market that I would expect that over the future you're going to see other alternative outlets for short-form video. Online advertising only accounts for 100 billion of the 800 billion in global ad spend, and and video advertising as a part of that is only 7 to 10%. That has not taken off as fast, and I think you're going to see that as a high growth rate area, you can see that only a quarter of the U.S. brands are using online video today. But I can tell you, I went to a conference 2 weeks ago on content marketing, and the whole conversation was about online video and what could be done with it. There's a big emphasis on this Dove. I don't know if you saw the Dove campaign, which I think got 80 million views. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to see coming up in the future. Digital video ad spend is forecasted to grow. It just looks like a straight line up, which is what all venture capitalists like to see. Consumer behavior shows increased time allocated. 24 minutes are being spent daily on online video, and the average YouTube video is 4 minutes. I think that number is going to increase as people get more and more aware and interested in that area. We're seeing more and more talk about serialized programs on YouTube and longer form. Recently, we just talked to some people who are talking about doing 30-minute videos, and it wouldn't be unrealistic at some point to see full-form independent features going on. 3/4 of U.S. internet users now view video. This is a large audience. It has not, in numbers, is not that big in terms of growth, but it's going to continue to grow over the years as the obviously population grows and native advertising. Native advertising has been around forever, called infomercials on television. But today we're seeing that banner ads are not as successful as they were. Actually, they never were that successful. But there's more and more interest in native advertising, which, for those of you who don't know, incorporates an advertising component into some form of content. And there's an argument, which you can see at the bottom of this, can be controversial because there's a fine line sometimes between what is advertising and what is editorial content. Most native advertising is identified as advertising, maybe subtle, but it is indicated. But to develop advertising that fits in together with the text of an article and in a similar typeface or graphic distribution is very common, and you may not even realize it, which is good, that you may be seeing an advertising because and every major advertiser from GE to General Motors to IBM are all using native advertising, and that is going to be a very, very fast-growing area of the advertising business. As it says here, 41% of Facebook's ad revenues came from native mobile ads in the second quarter, so you can get an idea. And with Twitter just now going public, about to go public, and taking ads, you can be sure almost all of those ads, because it is not a very good format for display advertising, will be in the form of native advertising, in my opinion. Give you an indication of what kind of spending is expected. Double for the next couple of years, next 4 years, and there's no end to where that will go. And I would say that is going to be a trend all over the world, because it's a very effective advertising. The ROI from that form of advertising has been very high. The lifts are great. Sponsorship dollars are flowing into the area, as I mentioned, and a lot of name advertisers. And connected devices. Connected devices probably is the latest and greatest. We call it the Internet of Things. It's a rapidly emerging sector with now 25 billion new devices from, I'm sure you've all seen the Fitbit, Jet, and all the other devices that have come out from Samsung and Nike, and IBM is coming out with one, I believe, and there isn't anybody who's not developing some kind of device that you and you, of course, your phone is a connected device, but embedded and wearable health devices, smart watches with new control interfaces, smart appliances, the Nest, I'm sure you've heard about, which enables you to control every device in your house, tracking tags for your dog and your child to know where, with microchips, to know where they are all the time. And I saw a demonstration out here of remote monitoring for cars. That's happening. It's beginning. We've had an outlet in the car for the last 5 or 10 years, which is a naked outlet with a lot of pins for connections and very few people connecting into those pins, which is giving out a lot of information about the diagnostics of the car and where it is and everything else. And I think there's going to be a lot more happening in that area in the next several years. This is probably one of the great areas of opportunity, particularly with the emphasis on health and people wanting to know how they're doing at all times and what the longevity is, I think, and also monitoring their performance. So keep your eye out for anything you see that has any kind of proprietary advantage. It's expected to grow rapidly. As you can see, that's probably the fastest growing area in terms of projections. This comes from Cisco, and they should know. The Internet of Things data traffic is expected to grow exponentially. It's a hot area. And finally, just throwing out a bunch of ideas. As I said, offline gathering of analytics, tremendous amount of data is being created through the connected device revolution. Figure out a way to harness it. We're moving to a world where every part of oneself can be studied and quantified, so find solutions to the biggest health problems. Over-the-top television, everybody wants to cut the cable, cut the cord. We've seen, we have an investment in that area. Even since I've been here, I've heard 1 or 2 people who have similar companies. Everybody's trying to figure a way of how to deliver video wherever you are. The company we are in can take a video signal from your house, wherever it is in the world, and take it to the top of the Himalayas, as long as there's an ISP connection someplace. Sharing. The sharing economy is going wild. There's people are sharing apartments, as you know, bike sharing, city bikes finally made it to New York City, following, in that case, certainly a follower to the rest of the world. I don't know what exists, if there is anything in Kiev or in Russia or this part of the world, but it's certainly in France and England and a lot of other countries. And we've been far behind, but it hit New York about 3 months ago after spending years fighting bureaucracy, and it's taken off like a house on fire. Home shares, bike shares, car shares, which is, I'm sure you're aware of the zip cars and things like that. Now we just saw a company called BlackJet, which is sharing jets, because a lot of the time of a jet that someone owns is sitting on the ground. So it's all about trying to use resources more efficiently. And before I mention the last one, I'd say that one of the things I left off this chart is, which I noticed in walking around the room, but it made me trigger my memory of what I forgot, and that is that education is a very big hot button today. Coming up with ways of monitoring performance of kids, even more importantly, monitoring performance of schools, offering more efficient ways of delivering textbook information. We're moving more and more towards having a more educated society. Everybody can't afford to go to college or go to graduate school, and so the idea is to make expertise available in some very inexpensive internet-delivered format. And finally, prize-driven innovation. People are finding more and more that it's very, should I say, monetary, but it has an enormous motivating effect. As you know, there's been a prize out to develop a new spaceship, but more and more we're seeing companies that are coming up with the idea of motivating people through prizes. And I would say to those of you who have any involvement in any area like this, it's a great source of motivation, and some great discoveries are going to be made in science, particularly biotech, which is not an area I focus on, but prizes are becoming more and more important, monetary prizes, and in all other areas of technology. So with that, I will say thank you for having me, and this is a very exciting conference, and I'll look forward, like the rest of you, to spending the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you all.